trust in your music. Fuck your excuses. Stay hungry. Stay foolish.
Ooh, mic drop. That is a wrap. Welcome to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. Yes, as you can see, this is our new Dan Lok Productions studio. We are upgrading, and this is the first interview that we are doing in this new studio. I'm super excited to bring you a special guest, the CEO of Influex. Now, this is a very, very special friend, simply because it's not just someone that I bring on to the podcast, but someone I actually hire to help me with my websites initiatives, someone who is specialized in building personal branding sites for influencers, someone who has built websites for Lewis Howes and Ryan Dice and Joe Polish, and yes, yours truly. So Dmitry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. I am so grateful to be here and excited to share.
And you know, I want to talk a little bit about how we met, because I was looking for someone, a company, to redesign my site. And a lot of people, they say my site is good and compared to a lot of other people. And it's not an easy thing to do. And I've been on this search because I've talked with a lot of web design companies and branding companies, and they don't quite get what I do, because I don't just do one thing. It's not like, okay, I'm only in the education business. We have a lot of different businesses. We have the personal brand. And I remember I came across actually your site, Influex, and I thought, this is awesome. Like I see the portfolio, I see the design. I said, it's interesting because I've never done design before. It's not like I've taken any design courses, but I know good design when I see one. And when I saw your company's work,
so awesome through the process because your expertise shined through as well. And that's one of my favorite things about collaborating was like, wow, Dan's really in this and knows design. And I think part of the end result was the creative collaboration that happened.
That's correct. And then when we had the first meeting, I shared with you my vision and how what we're looking for. And I was so impressed after that meeting, because you're the first one ever to really get what I'm talking about. Like, this is what we need. We have the company with a personal brand. We have all the investments. How do we do this together? It's never been done. And you, instead of shying away from the challenge, you're like, let's do this. You've never done this before. You embrace the challenge, which is awesome. So talk to us a little bit about how you even got into this whole design business. Like, what inspired you to start Influex?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that reflection as well, because I think this actually goes to my origin story and how everything started. Yes. In that, to me, it's not a web design agency so much as it's an opportunity to really deeply get to know who somebody is at their core essence. Yes. And everything that they do and how they express themselves in the world, and then build that digital presence for them online in a way that's both fully authentic and meets the market with where they're at, so that they can truly like bring through those gifts and serve. And so I'll share a little bit of my personal story, and then how that leads to how Influex started.
Sure.
In that, much like you, I immigrated at an early age. I was 7 years old when I came to the States. Single mom, well below the poverty line when we got here, and that all of that created this kind of like drive and gratitude in me, because in contrast to where we were in Soviet Russia, we below the poverty line here was actually quite like wealthy, and we were or felt not wealthy, but felt like abundant, and that created this like both drive and gratitude in me at a very early age. Started working super young, but also had a really tough time socially adjusting. And this kind of leads to a lot of how Influex started, in that as a kid, I couldn't fully express myself, both not knowing the language and then getting bullied a lot, tough time socially adjusting. And so expression in my adult life became a really core value of like the fullest expression of who somebody is actually is so important for the world and their happiness. And then because I also didn't have a lot of friends or a lot of family, connection became a really important value. And so I'd say connection has been one of the things that has allowed both me to do what I do, because I deeply connect with people. We don't just build sites, but we connect to their core essence. And we have a culture. Our company is like a family in many ways.
Yes.
And then the third thing I would say is influence, is the ability to influence the world around me. When I felt powerless as a kid, I wanted to develop that power through influence and also develop significance so that I would be safe. And Influex is a combination. It's a word that I made up as a combination of influence and expression, based on the belief that your greatest influence comes through your fullest expression.
Yes. And I know that you even define not just you're the CEO of the company, not just a chief executive officer, but a chief expression officer, right? And I think it's helping clients and the influencers that you work with to express their brands. And I think that's one thing I appreciate the most about working with you guys, that it's not just a cookie cutter template. Oh yeah, we've done a lot of these sites. It kind of looks like this. It's got a header. It's got an opt-in thing. And that's the challenge with a lot of companies I've talked to. And I didn't go with them because it just doesn't, they don't get it. After the first meeting, I'm like, they're not getting it. Right? And unfortunately, a lot of them, another thing I appreciate working with you is a lot of them, they want my business because they just want to leverage my name, right? Oh, I can do it, Dan, because then they can put it on the website. Oh yeah, we build the websites for Dan to get other clients, which it's like they're not taking the time. And yet initially, I remember just the initial period of time, it took us a while, right? Quite a few back and forth to really nail down to what are we trying to accomplish? What's the brand? What's the expression? Before we do any design, any wireframe. And no one does that. So why do you guys do that?
Yeah, so I totally believe in like getting creative clarity before ever starting a pixel of design. And I want to speak to the template piece as well, because even part of how we started Influex was I started this web design agency in college.
Yes.
And then in my early 20s, got introduced to Yannick Silver, became my first mentor. Through that, started doing work for a number of internet marketers. And we built a personal brand site for Mike Dillard. He loved it so much, he mailed it out to his audience. And we got all these leads. And so many of the leads asked that very question. They said, hey, where can I get the template or the WordPress theme that you used for Mike Dillard? Because I want something similar. Or can you build me that template? And I'm like, guys, this is not a template. It's unique custom work that is a reflection of who Mike Dillard is.
Yes.
And so we started doing more of those. People kept asking us for templates. And part of how Influex started was actually we set out on this mission to build what we thought would be like ClickFunnels to the personal brand world. And we actually set out on this mission to build templates. And instead we discovered, hey, let's go deep and do the work and really get to know who each individual is and what makes a great site. And so we've got now our 10,000 hours in doing the custom work. And now we're playing with maybe make some templates for the marketplace and playing with education and structures around all of that. But it's come from doing the really deep work.
And I think there's no shortcut about it because each client is unique. And I remember looking at the portfolio that I see different elements. Like I see like certain elements, what you guys have designed for different people. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. But I think you told me, but Dan, we're going to create something unique, different for your brand, right?
Right. Because every brand and every individual is different, and how you, even the influence and expression components, right? Every person has a unique essence. Every brand has a unique essence. You've got, in many ways, dozens of brands and a family of them, and how they all work together. And you're always evolving. Like who Dan was 3 years ago isn't who Dan is now, isn't who Dan will be 2 or 3 years from now. And so we try to look at who have you been, because your story is important. Who are you now? And where are you going? Bring all of those versions of Dan and the different archetypes that you play, the educator, the entertainer, the entrepreneur, the executive, the media personality, all of those components into one brand, because all of those are you. So I really believe that a personal brand and a personal brand site is the 24/7 digital expression of the person online. So that's the expression piece. And then the influence matters just as much. And you teach so much on influence, which is actually, it's the opposite of the personal essence side, which is actually getting yourself out of the way. And it's getting to know, who am I serving? Who is my audience? What do they want and need? Why are they here, right? Why are they here looking at my site, my brand, looking at me as hope or inspiration or education, and getting to know them so well, what their fears, hopes, desires, all of that are, and then combining the two, which is how does my unique expression and unique message and essence support them with where they're going. And without both of those components, you don't really have a successful brand.
I'm also curious of why did you pick this particular niche? Because you could be a branding company. Why did you pick, like, particularly working with personal brands or influencers?
Yes. Primarily, I think it goes back to like connection. And, we do work for companies and products as well. And that's kind of part of our brand triangle is, I believe, personal, company, and product all work together. But I primarily personally love working with individuals. Even for most branding companies, that's the hardest thing, right? Because every individual is so unique. There's no formula for how you express an individual online through a brand, which is what I love about it, because it's such unique creative work, and every new client, every new experience is such a discovery process for who is this human and how do I support them in bringing their full selves online. And then the other piece has been much like what you experienced through the podcast. I'm sure you learn so much on every episode. You're both Dan the interviewer and Dan the student.
Yes.
And so I have that experience. Every client that comes in, I don't have to go pay for personal development workshops or mentorship because every client that comes in is a mentor for me. So just by building your site, there's so much wisdom that I absorbed, building the wealth triangle page.
It's almost by working with some of the brightest minds, business and marketing minds in the world, you get to, like you said, learn from them, and you get to kind of see them in action a bit. Not just learning from a distance, but actually collaborate and working together and see how they think, and by just through observation, you will learn a lot. So I could see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, it's going so deep into how you operate behind the scenes.
Yes.
In addition to what you deliver on front of stage.
Yes.
And then that teaches me so much about how I get to show up as an entrepreneur. So every time clients, reflect to me of like, wow, you have so much wisdom for your age, or how do you do this so well? And in addition to having like the 10,000 hours, and most of it because of just every day standing on the shoulders of giants and learning from them and their marketing brilliance, and then combining all of that into our work.
I think for any listeners for the Dan Lok Show, I think there are a couple of key lessons here. You notice with Dmitriy, he is very focused on his craft, right? It's not like those fly-by-night designing company where it could be money-driven, it could be just, it's very transactional. Versus when you do deep work, people recognize it, right? And when I recognize it, it sounds so basic, but I'm shocked nowadays by how many people, professionals, they don't go deep. They're like very, very shallow, and they don't have a lot of depth to their work. And no wonder they're not growing, and they're not learning, and they're not prospering, because people could see that. And just like this, I work with Influx, and now we're working on the second, the third, the fifth site. I don't even know how many, a lot, right? And then, we'll be working together for a long time, because I think someone who is outstanding or who is excellent recognizes another person who shares the same value. And once you find those people, they don't go anywhere. So from a business perspective, I think that's a very valuable lesson for all the listeners. There's no gimmick, there's no trick. Like, do you have the chops or not? Right?
And are you simple, passionate about the craft and what you do, and then inspire a team that's deeply passionate about it, because it's such a loud competitive marketplace in almost every industry. I mean, our space, the web design world, and you can hire people for a few dollars an hour.
From a fun fifer and stuff like that.
Work that we do, and we charge tens of thousands of dollars for what we do, and then we're the number one choice, and that's so much because we go so deep and really love our craft. And I think anybody out there these days building a business, it's really important it doesn't have to be built around your passion necessarily, but you have to love what you do. because you're going to show up to it for many, many years.
Yes. I think we also have to be very passionate about creating results and delivering value.
Yes.
You may not like the thing, but we gotta like the feeling, the emotions we provide to the marketplace, right? Talk to us a little. You touch a little bit on that, the brand triangle. Walk us through a little bit of how that works.
Yes. So I love this because you've got the wealth triangle.
Yes.
We've got the brand triangle.
Brand triangle, yes.
And it's a triangle that has personal brand on one corner, company brand on another corner, and then on top sits the product brand.
Yes.
And each of these, I kind of call them the 3 C's. Personal brand is there for connection.
Okay.
Company brand is there for credibility. And the product brand is there for conversion. And so each of them plays a different role. And you could think of these as 3 different brands. In reality, you're always building all 3, even if they sit on one site. So DanLok.com there's the personal brand because there's who Dan Lok is as a man. And that's there for connection to the market. It's your story, it's your voice, it's your authentic expression. There's Dan Lok, the company, the group of companies that lives on there as well. That's there for credibility because they're not just buying from Dan or doing business with Dan or trusting Dan with their lives and their futures, which is as well. They're trusting the Dan Lok group of companies, which is so much more than Dan. And so there's that trust and credibility there. Much like when we think of in the larger marketplace, Tesla and Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk voice the connection to the marketplace. Tesla is the credibility because of everything they've done so far. And then the product, that's when we go into the influence side of just getting to know your audience. So where personal brand is more about you and your connection, company brand is around credibility and trust. The product brand is all about conversion, this is where features, benefits, really dialing in your avatar. And this is the piece where you're entirely focused on how am I serving and how do I convert people so that I can offer them something and then serve through my personal and company brands.
And I think one thing by working with Influx has helped me to, because that was one of the challenges that we have when we were talking. Okay, I have a very strong personal brand. We have a product brand, multiple product brands. How do we combine them together? How do you, because the tricky thing is when someone goes to, let's say my website, danlok.com, you have all kinds of people. You could have a 16-year-old looking to for a new career, an alternative. You have someone going there looking for maybe a little bit of motivation. You could have a business owner that's looking for ways to generate more sales. Or you could have a CEO of Fortune 500 company. Like, it's very difficult to build a website that speaks to all. It's easy to build one, just speak to one or the other. And we were brainstorming and we were thinking about how does it flow? How could we have someone who is looking for that without jumping through a lot of hoops, and they could just go get to that, right? And also showcasing, we actually have way more than you think, right? We have all these things that they may not recognize. It's such a fascinating process, and what we did, I think it's pretty incredible. Like I have shared, which when you're watching this, we just recently relaunched danlok.com, and I've been getting some just like mind-blowing comments, right, from people like, wow, like how could you? And I think one thing actually I learned from you is we were thinking about using a lot of words to describe what we do, but you and the team came in and say, Dan, I think we could simplify it. Like, what are some of the core messages? What are you about? What's the company about? And then we simplified that and using visuals, right, to be able to express. And I think that's one thing I wish I would have learned, because you asked me too, like, have I learned design before? I've never learned design before, ever. No, I've not even read a book on design.
Well, surprisingly, me neither. And the whole time, part of what I think has made us stand out so much in the industry, and now we have a team of really great designers.
Yes.
And we've got Jonathan Gray, our Imagineer, essentially our creative director, who's now come in with a tremendous amount of experience.
Yes.
I built this agency, most of my career in it, without having any formal design training, without even knowing most fonts and pairings and a lot of the technical design training that people get through learning design. I didn't know this stuff. And I actually never followed most of the rest of the industry or looked at other agencies. I was just really focused on who is the unique individual in front of me. And then how do I help them express that to the world in a way that meets, in your case, so many different audiences and avatars. And now bringing in design. So, and I think for you, as you mentioned words, right? You're so great at copywriting. And I do believe that copy and design, right? Words and visuals really play together. And the visuals should enhance people reading the right words.
Definitely.
And as people read the words, they should be able to even visualize an experience, which they're also getting on the site.
Yes. And I think paying attention to brands, I think one of the lessons I've learned over the years is because in the beginning, I learned how to write copy. It's about words, it's about proof, it's about case study and all these things. And a lot of the marketing gurus talk about that, right? Keep it simple, long sales page, and we still use long sales page. But once I understood branding, I just think that it's very, very powerful to ignore. Because I'm looking at, if that's the case, wouldn't all the copywriters run the biggest companies in the world? Yet that's not the case, right? People buy from brands. So there's a whole branding aspects that they don't understand, right? In copywriting, there's a phrase, we call that ugly sales, right? Keep it ugly, keep it, basic, black and white, and that's fine. I'm like, that's not true because you have this whole, how many companies, this massive industry that are people marketing through brands. So that it's absolutely not the case, right?
And that's what, like, when we talk about the brand triangle, those long copy sales letters, right?
Yes.
That's, if you cut off the brand triangle at the top and you're just focused on a product brand, you've got to have a really, really great copy
offer
and a really strong offer and message to be able to sell that, because you don't have the credibility of the brand or the connection, personal brand. Now, if you do have those things, then you need actually a lot less persuasion, because the credibility, every product we launch, right? Why do we buy when Apple launches a new product? Because we trust all the credibility from before. And in my case, even Steve Jobs is one of my personal heroes. Even a decade later, his essence is still in the company. And so I trust every time he comes out with something new. For you and your audience, right? You launch something new, you don't need a very long offer to sell it unless you're going cold market, right? And if you're going cold market, you may need a long offer, but even that offer doesn't require as much convincing because your credibility is already on there and your personal connection and voice that they trust is already on there. So these three, they all work together, much like on your wealth triangle, right? There's the arrows that combine the three and they all flow together. Similar thing with these three is you're not just building a company brand, personal or product, they all flow together. They all increase conversion.
So the personal brand makes the company brand stronger. The company brand makes the conversion easier, right? And then of course you get more customers, it makes the personal brand stronger. Then you have this positive cycle going on, right? That makes a lot of sense. I love that. And one of the questions I get from people all the time is, should I build a personal brand, right? Dan, should I do I'm in this business, should I build a personal brand? And I always tell them, one of the regrets I have is I didn't build a personal brand sooner. In the early, many years of my career, I was focusing on the product, right? Whatever I was marketing and selling, I was spending a lot of time on that. Little bit on company, but not even that much. It's mainly on product. It's when I got the personal branding piece, I was like, this is interesting. And this is useful for all the listeners. Doesn't matter if it's design or not. We're talking about positioning. What I've learned is what we do might change, right? Like the business that we're in, I might be in this business today. I may not be in this business 10 years from now. So let's say if I built my entire identity around this particular company, right? Let's say I'm a real estate agent, right? I'm a realtor. I'm a real estate agent. I've been doing that for 10 years. Well, suddenly the whole market knows that's who I am, right? But suddenly when I want to change, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. Well, all the equity I've built up, the brand equity, it's kind of not transferable because that's what I built. Versus if you build your personal brand, you could be in real estate, but you could do other things too, right? So if someone wants to do that, what's the key? What are some of the key strategies they need to pay attention to?
Yeah, I'd say number one thing is, and like you mentioned with real estate, is you're always the awareness that you're always building your personal brand, whether or not you're doing it intentionally. Yeah. And if you're not doing it intentionally, then it's being built by accident. So you might as well put in the intention, or even if you're behind the scenes, and you're not building it, then it's being built as invisible. And then as soon as your company, product, marketplace, all of that changes, as you mentioned, then you kind of have to start over every time, which is what so many internet marketers oftentimes do. And instead, as you mentioned, you could basically build your personal brand and share. And some of it just looks like sharing who you are and your message and your values, and something that's valuable still for whatever industry you're in, but is beyond just the product message, so that people are getting to know you and trust you, so that when you launch a new product, whether it's to that same audience, same industry, or it's something else, they already know your voice. And the key thing is they want to hear from you. Right? And if you build a message, whether it's through social, your site, email, even in personal network and connection, is if you're building a reputation where people want to hear from you, regardless of whether you're making an offer or contributing something valuable, or even just inquiring with them about their lives, then when you are ready to go make a new offer, you now have got a bunch of people who want to hear from you.
Yes, and that's something I now truly believe in, because I notice when the personal brand is stronger, everything is easier. Whatever that we want to do, it's so much easier. And that's why I use the word in Dan Lok book, as you know, social capital, because it's not just branding. Because branding, a lot of people, they don't understand branding. They think branding is a logo, which you and I both know it's not a logo. Logo is one tiny piece of branding. Branding to me is actually reputation. It's right. It's what the marketplace, what you're known for, right? What you're about, what your values are, and I think also Influex helps me to narrow down. We focus on the wealth triangle. Anything that evolves that's what we're about. Doesn't matter what company, what product, that's what's about. It's not just, we have a high ticket closer program, which is a sales training, versus a lot of people where their whole lives, they're only known as a sales trainer, right? Isn't it interesting though, Dmitry, that people like to pigeonhole, like they like to categorize, he is a sales trainer, she is a fitness coach, right?
Yeah, and both are so important, right? Is pigeonholing yourself enough so that people recognize this is where I go to for what, right? And that's part of designing the identity. And then at the same time, also expressing who you are and your personality and your character. And I'd say even like character is so important for that to shine through. And that's one of the things I loved about working with you, is there was an image of previously, I'm like, Dan Lok with the Bentley and this stuff. And then as soon as we got on the call, I'm like, wow, I'm getting to know this man's heart and what he's really all about. And I'm so excited to have that shine through the brand, because now anything, like when that shines through, anything new that you put out into the marketplace, whether or not it's within an industry that you already have credibility in or not, people are like, I like Dan, I trust Dan. And so I even saw, Mike Dillard was an excellent example of this, where I've seen him launch multiple businesses in industries that he had virtually no experience in, and build them to 8-figure companies. And he didn't do it because, I have expertise in the financial industry, so therefore I'm going to launch all of this stuff. He did it because he said, I have curiosity in the financial industry, and I'm going to bring on the experts and have those experts teach you, and I'm going to learn alongside you. And then he's built a number of businesses and launched so many things this way, where he's not selling based on I'm the expert. He's selling based on I'm going down this journey where I'm learning it myself. And because you trust me, come on the journey with me. And then he's sold tens of millions of dollars basically with that. And that gives him permission then to enter any new industry, because part of his character is to trust him as both a student and a teacher. So I think it's so important in your personal brand, is for whatever your key values are to shine through, where it's both showing what your values within the particular industry or product or marketplace that you serve. And independently of that, if you were to enter a completely new market with a completely different audience, then what would always carry over? Because you'll still be the same you, regardless of what the marketplace, the economy, your products, any of that, your company brand, any of that is doing. It's like what carries over that'll always be there.
And Mike is a good friend. I've been on his podcast, has been on my podcast. I've gone to his house and I visited him. And so it's interesting. In fact, just for my fans, I think an interesting question I would ask on their behalf, I think would be just for their amusement, right? What's one thing that you find surprising that people don't know working with me?
Yes, this is great.
So you've seen you've seen what we do, right? Before we even work together. Yes.
Yeah, I would say that the thing that I have most appreciated that I got to discover that I really connected with was like inner child, where there's a brand persona that I perceived you as before. It's like the serious, badass entrepreneur and like in the suit, and you've got all of that. And then as soon as I actually dove in to start watching your content and got to know you personally, like, there's all these characters within Dan, all these archetypes, and he's actually like, in a way, like a big kid playing business, and that's part of what attracts people to him. So I'd say it's so much of that, like the comic book component, the racing,
the superhero, the Bruce Lee, right? Yes,
right, along with the family man, right? You and Jenny and your relationship. And at the same time, it's building this conglomerate empire of companies. And I think part of what that, for me, inspires, and I imagine for so much of your audience, it makes possible for, like what Richard Branson does, is playing at a really high level in business without sacrificing yourself or your life or making it stressful, but actually the whole time making it playful. And so because you embody that, right? That's part of the character, and that's part of the personality that shines through. That's part of, even if it's not explicitly expressed, like explicitly, you're like, hey, here's what I'm going to teach you. It's sales, it's closing, it's building this business. But implicitly, what shines through is you're the model for them living their best life, fully expressed, happy, joyful, playing at life while making tons of money, having a lot of impact and building their careers, which is very different, I think, from what a lot of people imagine success in business to be like, which is heavy and stressful and a lot of sacrifice of health or family.
Correct. I think it's very, very true. And I think in some way, I think because I was like that from 20-somewhat years old to 30 years old, like all business serious and, just cutthroat and all that. And now as I get older, I guess, it's more so like, I'm just gonna be me. Right? Everything is taken just going to be me. I don't want to just have the image that we have a certain brand persona, but and one thing I do, again, very appreciate working with the team is when I brought those elements up, most branding experts or agency would be like, no, play safe, be conservative, just do this. And, why would you bring like some toys into your world? Why would you bring Bruce Lee into your world? Why would you bring, it doesn't even make any sense. Like you teach financial confidence and skill sets and like, no. But, with Influex, with you, you're like, no, bring it on. Let's see what we can do. Let's do this. Let's add that component. Let's mix it up. And I just love that because it allows me to be even more expressive of, you know what? I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do
which people
more.
Resonate with. It gives them permission to then play more fully in business, and then therefore they want to learn from you versus somebody who's just much more dry. Maybe with the same. Somebody else could come along with the same exact lessons, but if they're just focused on here's the product, here's the benefits. There's so many education businesses out there that people are both choosing their education and they're choosing their teacher. And if you think about it, if you're gonna spend years in college, if you're going to go to any class, right? And what's probably one of the top things you want to make sure if you're spending hours per day in there is you want to make sure you like your teacher. And if you got a teacher that's like fun and playful or whatever the personality is that's resonant to you, you're a lot more likely to be in that class than the teacher who's just focused on the material and is boring. Even if that other teacher is maybe like a little smarter or more experienced, you still want to learn from the one that you resonate with most. So I think with the authenticity side of it, it not only makes it so much more fun to do business, but it also works better, right? It's worked, and people, I think these days, right, in 2020, in this new decade, your online expression, your personal brand site really is the 24/7 digital version of you, if done right. And if it's not congruent, people feel that and they trust less and they have less connection. If it's fully congruent, people are so much more likely to say, here's my money over and over and over again, because they trust, right? And the energetics of the business and the brand is congruent, along with, right, all the influence components that are just as important of actually ensuring that the thing that you're offering is communicating the benefits really well to the audience.
And I think at the end of the day, I always teach that people buy from people, right? People buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And sometimes when I teach influencers or even business owners, they're afraid to share, oh, I just want to talk about my product brand. Like, why do they want to know about my family? Why do they want to know, if I have kids? Why would they want to know my hobbies? I'm like, it's not about if they want to know or not, but by sharing those things, it could be another kind of affinity affinity point that they could connect with you. It's interesting, right? Because you might think, oh, it's not relevant. Actually, it is very relevant.
I just got a great line for this that I think I'm going to start using and copy out of what you're saying, is intimacy builds influence.
Yes.
Is the more intimacy that you have with somebody, the more they know, like, and trust you, the more influence you have. And so being more intimate doesn't mean you share all of your personal life, but sharing enough so that they're like, oh, I see who this person is. And therefore I feel more trust sharing who I am. And therefore there's a deeper customer relationship there, and more referrals, right? And more everything, because people are like, hey, check out this person and something unique about them. It is also a way to get more attention, right? All of Dan and all the different components of who you are makes it much more interesting when you go to do an ad campaign. You're like, hey, what can we do that's really going to be catchy and drive attention, that's also fully authentic, while also simultaneously communicating all the customer benefits.
Yes, I agree. And a lot of times I guess it's also a little bit of luck. It's just the things that I'm interested in. I never do anything just for, because I think that would work well for content or camera. No, I've been a Bruce Lee fan my whole life. I've been superhero fan my whole life. Like, it's not, I get these things to show good. I collect these things. I happen to do it and share, and a lot of people like it and they just resonate, right? Like, you rarely, I think I might be the only one, I'll think about it, where I am talking business and then I could be on my channel, I'm unboxing an Iron Man toy. Like, it's very odd, right? But I'm like, no, it's just who I am. It's what I like, right?
It's part of what endears people to you, which is so important, because there's so many voices out there right now. And the more endeared and connected we feel to somebody, the more we're going to keep coming back.
Yes.
We have their attention, both mind and heart, in a different way.
So let's say when someone now, they have a personal brand and they're expressing themselves, right? When you work with so many different influencers, what are some of the things that you've learned from them or that you've seen that really works when it comes to kind of blow up a personal brand or get more attention or get more leads for a business? What are some of the key lessons or secrets that you see from other influencers?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with leveraging network and connections, because I've seen so many people simply through being on a few podcasts, and this is part of how we build Influex, is getting the right clients and then being on their podcasts, and that has really amplified our brand, where we haven't had to do a tremendous amount of advertising. Because when you have a level of influence, you can leverage others' influence. Right, and share your personal voice on there on a platform where others are already doing that. So on your site, on a personal brand site, what I often find is missing for people, that is such an important component, is a media and speaking page, where even if you haven't done a lot of media and speaking, just having that up there and maybe having a few podcast episode features or even some YouTube videos and a form for people to fill out and request is telling the marketplace and the universe, hey, I'm available for this. And then as soon as you start getting those media opportunities, then you feature them on the site, right? And that creates part of the credibility, persuasion, and content throughout, where you don't have to create as much of your own content. And so then
love that.
The other piece I'd mentioned with the credibility that works so well, so many people struggle with writing their own copy.
Yes.
It's such a challenge, even for, like, you guys hired us to write your personal brand copy. And even though you've got great copywriters on the team. And we find even people that are industry legends in copywriting, we oftentimes write their copy because it's actually hard from the subjective perspective to write your own personal brand copy. And so one of the hacks that I found to support people with this is if you get great testimonials or media and PR quotes, then you can use those to write half the copy for you in a way that's shorter, more effective, more credible, and is actually more honest because it's your customers saying the things about you that rather than you saying them about yourself. So that would be like one of the hacks that I would say both builds authority and influence and makes the process so much.
And without coming across very bragging, right? It's not arrogant. It's much more intimate actually, and it's great. And combined with the right type of graphics and visuals, then we have something like very, very powerful. And I could see that. Yeah. One of the things I absolutely want to ask you is this, because behind the scenes, working with your team, and this is kind of my personal question too. You have attracted a great team of people, which I think I'm pretty good with that. But when I work with you, because I can see you're the creative genius, right? And most of the time, like for when you work with someone, there's only one of those in the whole company. But when I work with your team, I'm like, oh no, like they're all like kind of like Avengers. They all have their own superpower and they're all superheroes. I'm like, how? And knowing when you're working with artists and designers, I mean, they're artistic. It's not easy to get them to work together because they have their own, ideas and methodologies. And like, how do you even do it? Like, I'm just incredibly impressed and curious, right? How do you attract them, first of all? And how do you retain them? Those are good questions I want to ask.
I love these questions. This is one of my favorite things actually about business is the behind the scenes of building a really great company and a really great culture and team, and building it in many ways like a family that's all aligned around a common mission and vision. And so I'd say probably our top, the top really key tactical components that I would recommend everybody do is number one, have a vision for the future that inspires people for who they can become through that stepping into that vision. So Cameron Herold has a really great process called the Vivid Vision. I've been using that for so many years because it paints a picture of who are we as a company 3 years from now. And then that's the first thing that we put in people's hands when recruiting is, do you resonate with this vision? Is this something that you want to be part of creating? And then just as important as part of the interview process is, who do you want to become? And how do you see yourself playing into this vision in becoming that person? Because everybody wants to play a bigger game than they're currently playing in their lives and careers. And if they don't, then you probably don't want them on your team. And so everybody wants a place where they can keep evolving and growing. So we've made it a point, both through our vision and our culture, to ensure that their work is also their place for their greatest evolution. And there's always an opportunity to evolve and step up as long as they're willing to. And I would say the other key piece of retention has been this value of connection, is coming to work, ensuring like your full self is welcome at work. I think there's so many companies these days, and really this is a lot of how business is. There's your business self of how you got to show up at work. And then there's your personal life self, and they're separate, right? And while we for sure encourage there's a level of professionalism you show up with at work, there's also bring your full self to work, including sometimes not with clients, but within the team, of like, hey, if you've got some personal trauma or challenges or fears or anxieties, this is also a safe place to share those, because they're going to come up anyway. They're either going to come up through the shadow of how then they mess things up at work, or you can just be vulnerably revealed, and then we can support around that. So I've been a huge fan of, sometimes I play a therapist or coach role to people on our team, and sometimes people are that for me behind the scenes. And so the workplace is both, here's where we play our biggest game, and here's where it's safe to really be vulnerable, because as we grow, things will break constantly, and people will break, or components of them that, like, as they're stepping into new levels of performance, will be really challenged. And so we've made it this place where people feel like safe, connected, and really challenged, and then genuinely love the people they work with. And I'll add one more, which is we've got our core values. We call them our core codes. So I'll actually list them real quick. It's the acronym of Influex. And we help you guys, one of my favorite things to do creatively is take core values and put them into acronyms. And so for ours, it's, first one is innovate, imagine, inspire. And it's like, what future are we building? Second one is naked truth, which is radical candor and authenticity in our communication. Third one is forward flow, which is flow, but moving toward something, and design our systems, processes, and culture around that. Fourth is love more, which is we constantly share appreciations for each other, and in many ways choose when there's a conflict, including whether it's with a client or team member or vendor, is how can we bring more love to the situation so that we can actually address the challenge as well with naked truth. Then there's U is upward spiral, which is like we all evolve together.
Growing together.
Somebody steps up, we all step up. And that's the same with our relationship with our clients. E is express your essence, bring your full authentic self to work. And X is X factor, which is what's the unique thing you do that's a multiplier, and how can we design your role and your job in a way that that plays to your key gifts and less to your the things that you struggle with.
And that's very unique, because you are encouraging the individual expression. At the same time, you're encouraging the bring your full self and working with a team. And I think that's what makes the Influex culture very, very unique, especially when I work with your team, because I interact with different people, right? And it's great, because it's great to be able to see different ideas from different just talents. And they're like, it's great. Like, I'm just so impressed. Like this is actually very, very critical. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't understand how important it is, because we live in our own world, right? We kind of live, this is what we want to do, but to mobilize a team, they need to know, why are we doing this, and what's the vision, and what is this about? And I think we don't spend not enough time on that very often, right?
Yeah. It's the more you can bring in, like, how do I really leverage the greatest capacity of my team, because you're paying them anyway. If you're going to pay $50,000 a year, so it's your biggest investment and expense. So you might as well find out, how do I get the greatest contribution from this person that I'm paying, and from everybody on my team. And if you've got a bunch of team members, the more team members you have, and this goes to the collaboration piece, the larger your team, the more it either amplifies, right, how they work together, because two people isn't just 1 + 1, but it's actually amplified their creative collaboration, right? If done right. And same with the more people you have, right? 11 is actually, there's a multiplication there, or there's a division, because if they're struggling working together, you might as well not have that many people, because if they're not collaborating well, then there's just conflict and tension and drama. And then you're like, well, I might as well, so many entrepreneurs, I've definitely been there at points in my career, I just might as well do things myself. This is really
solopreneur, right? Yeah.
And so I think that piece is so important, is how do we ensure that people show up as their best selves to work and grow and contribute, and have an environment where they can work together and collaborate, and the best comes out through collaboration.
And because the way that you work with influencers, it is very, very, it requires a lot of time, right? It requires a lot of resources. And I know that you do not take on many clients. How many projects realistically you guys could take on? Like, if someone wants to hire Influex, like on a yearly basis?
Yep. So we're still kind of like, we're growing our team and capacity and always in touch and kind of figuring that out. So on our higher level, our innovation packages, I'd say we're working on usually somewhere between 12 and 20 at a time at different phases of the project. And we've got a team of about 30 people, and we're growing that team, but always super selective about who we bring on to grow our capacity. And then we recently launched a new thing called Pro Sites, which are more affordable because they're just under 10,000, while our other packages are in the 5-figure range. And Pro Sites are ones that they follow our model, kind of our structure. They're still custom design and they're beautiful. The difference is they don't involve me as much or our Imagineer, Jonathan. So it's less of, so where, when Dan Lok comes to us or Lewis House comes to us, we're like, how do we build the most innovative thing in the industry? And really set the bar higher, versus with Pro Sites, it's how do we meet or exceed the industry standard based on all the expertise that we have from our innovation, but not necessarily try to push the bar as far as design, but it's still going to be our full essence, expression, influence, all of that process.
And I would say it's your personal branding side, that is an investment. It truly is, because with social media, the way I see it, let's say YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all LinkedIn, these are different social media sites. But what I see is everybody needs a hub. Where do all these things, all the attention and followers and fans, there has to be a place where you kind of centralize your information, your messaging, what you're about in one place. Where is that? That's your personal branding site. That's actually that's my plan.
It's literally the center of your online universe, and it's the one thing that you fully control. And, I've heard this funny thing sometimes from clients or prospects in sales conversations where they'll say like, hey, my website isn't that important to me because it doesn't really make me money. That's not where most of my revenue comes from. And I look at their site, I'm like, well, of course your current site isn't where your revenue comes from. It's designed to push away revenue. I wouldn't.
I call that sales prevention department. Right? So imagine like the way I structure what we do is social media is up here, the main site, danlok.com, and then it branches out to everything else. It could be the product, company, everything else, right? But it has to be a hub. And people go back and forth. They go to the hub, they branch out to something else, then they follow you on social media, or they find you through the hub, and then they go to social media, and then they find your product brand. You gotta have this piece, and this piece needs to be done right? It needs to be done. And it's not easy. I could tell you that because we've gone through that. It's not easy. But once you get something right, it makes everything, it kind of brings everything together, right? Now, Dmitry, what if someone, maybe they are not in a position to maybe even hire you guys, but they want to incorporate what you've learned, some of the concepts in their businesses. Do you have any resources that could help someone do that? Maybe like a kind of do it themselves, kind of learn, self-paced kind of a system?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the things that's been really exciting after doing the work for 10 years and building the portfolio we have and the team that we have and the expertise, is we've been able to distill down a lot of processes and a step-by-step guided framework for how people can do this themselves. And so there's two ways of engaging that. One is actually just totally free, is on our site, on our blog, there's a ton of great information, articles, video trainings. And if you jump on our email community and follow us on social, we actually will oftentimes do free workshops as well. And on our site, we've got this thing called our Creative Clarity Kit, which is where we actually give you the tools, the Creative Clarity Questionnaire that Dan, you filled out, a brand Bible template, origin story framework, photography plan of exactly how to get a great personal brand shoot, and essentially all the tools that we walk our clients through. We actually just literally give that away for free on our site, because we want the world of websites to be better, and we want to make this easier for people.
Yes, and also that's a very abundant mindset. There's so much business out there. It's the processes, and it's very nice that you share, very generous, because it just, like I said, it makes everything better.
Yeah, and then we recently launched, and this is what I've been so excited about, a program called DIY, which stands for Do Influex Yourself.
Okay.
Where
Do Influex Yourself. Okay.
Where it's a guided process that's a combination of recordings and tools and our actual live training and hot seats, where it's me Jonathan Gray, who's our Imagineer, Mike Budney, who's our Chief Influence Officer, and a number of other team members that are actually walking you through step by step the process of doing this yourself, whether you're doing everything yourself, including all the building and technical components, which bless you if you're there and doing that piece. But there's a lot of great builders and tools out there. So we walk you through that. Or if you're hiring contractors, you're on a really tight budget, but you just want to be your best strategist. So we guide you through step by step on how to actually build your own personal brand site, which I think is so important and valuable because it's not only the end result is vital and important of getting a great personal brand site that fully expresses your essence, attracts clients, amplifies your influence in the marketplace, and becomes that platform. It also, you're learning a lifelong skill. And by learning how to build your own personal brand site, learning the world of websites and copy and messaging and story and branding is now for the digital age, for the coming decade, you've got this vital lifelong entrepreneurial skill that'll continue to serve you well beyond the initial site. So we've been really excited about taking the stuff we do behind the scenes that's been so expensive and inaccessible for people.
10 years.
Putting it into something that's super accessible with a really low tuition fee that then empowers them with these lifelong skills. And it's super fun going through the process.
And it's really compressing like a decade of experience and knowledge into something that people could use. And what I say is sometimes as an entrepreneur, you may be thinking, well, I'm not a designer. I outsource that, and that's fine. But I could tell you that by having an understanding of how things work, it doesn't mean you got to go to the Photoshop and design and things like that. But very much so, what I notice, how much value you get from a designer or branding agency or website design agency, very much it depends on your understanding of it. So imagine even me working with Influex, if I have no clue, zero clue, it would be more challenging because if they were asking me, I'm like, I don't know what looks, I have no clue, man, you guys do your thing. The end product just would not even be a fraction as good.
Right.
But
because even with us, like our designers, right?
Yeah.
If we went to our designers who are super talented, have done this hundreds of times.
Yes.
Hey, go design a great site for Dan.
Yes.
But we didn't have all the guidance and process along the way. They wouldn't be able to produce that same result. And so as an entrepreneur, if you're out there hiring designers, developers, copywriters, you can hire the most talented people and get a really crappy end result and struggle through the process and waste tons of time, energy, and money, which anybody who's tried to actually hire somebody for a site has mostly had this experience. And so what doing the learning of this will empower you to do is not only do you know the world of websites and how to do it yourself, you're now for the rest of your life, we actually teach how to hire and work with and collaborate with designers, developers, copywriters, so that you're both saving a ton of time, energy, and money, and also guiding the process in a way where the end result is something you're truly proud of.
Yeah, what I would recommend is you get to a stage where you at least develop an eye for it, right? Develop an eye for, I think that's the right design or that's off, or even copywriting. You may not become a full-time copywriter, but it would be helpful if you can recognize a good headline when you see one versus I have no clue, what is that, a good headline or bad headline? Just develop an eye for the design, the elements, the persuasion elements, how all that comes together. Because your brand, especially now with so much noise in the marketplace and on social media, your brands are what people buy. Your brands are the shortcuts. People see the brand, okay, that's good. I like the brand, I trust the brand, I would buy from the brand. Versus it's a very cohesive approach. It's not just content. Because you keep doing content without brand, it's just noise, right? Your brand without content, no one knows who you are, right? But you have brand without conversion, that's not good either. So you have all these components that I think as now a modern day entrepreneur, we need to know. It is our job to know. We could outsource, we can build a team, we can use a remote team, we can do all that. But at the end of the day, it's our brand, it's your brand, you got to know. Who's gonna come up with the brand, who's going to come up with the name, who's going to come up with the title. Who knows the customers more than anybody else? Oh, that person should be you, the client avatar, right? So Dmitry, awesome. If for our listeners, what's the best way to learn more about Influex or to connect with your company?
Influex.com, INFLUEX.
Yes.
So
UEX. UEX, remember.
UEX, yeah, because it's a combination of influence and expression. So Influex. Right.
Yes.
And so Influex.com is the best way. And we're actually working on our brand new brand and my new personal brand. So possibly by the time this airs or by the time you're listening to this, you'll see that. And then my personal brand, new one will be at dima.love, DIMA.love, LOV. So it's also DmitriYkozlov.com, but that's a nightmare to spell the way that I spell it. So I got this shortener.
I love that.
And then of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Those links I imagine will be somewhere in this post. And we love just sharing both with our email audience and socially what we're up to, what our latest tools and innovations are. And so if you follow us, just expect that you'll have a lot of value and a little bit of fun and entertainment along the way, which is, by the way, I'd love to close with a little bit of fun and entertainment if we've got another minute.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So one of the things I really love doing that I developed a skill set for as a kid was rap at the time. That's now spoken word poetry that has made its way into my business and expressions. So you've noticed I do a lot of poetry, great with words, acronyms, alliterations, all of that. That's part of how I do copy. And that comes from this skill set. So I'd love to share this 1-minute piece. It's called Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. And it's actually a combination of, if you take 3 of my biggest personal heroes, which are Steve Jobs, for his vision, creativity, his dedication to even merging polarities of like big business and hippie culture and technology and humanity. So been one of my biggest inspirations as an entrepreneur. Richard Branson for the level he plays at while enjoying life so fully. And Eminem helped get me through some dark times as a kid and was my introduction to rap.
Oh, wow.
I love his like raw expression.
Let's do it.
So this is a channeling of Steve Jobs' 2005 commencement speech at Stanford in a 1-minute Eminem style poem. All right. So if you're listening, take a deep breath with me. You never know the last breath you will take. So face death every day. Because in the face of death, everything falls away, leaving only what is truly important to you. Your music, your story, your truth, your beauty, your soul, what you do as unity forms within you and your music is pouring from you till every last bit of your fuel and your courage is used. And even when it feels like your hustle is useless, just remember that nothing is useless and there's a reason that you've been suffering through this because it's something that moves you to remember the truth that you've got nothing to lose and nothing to prove. So just do what you love and love what you do and have fun at it too. Trust in your music. Fuck your excuses. Stay hungry. Stay foolish.
Boom! Mic drop. That is a wrap. That is a wrap.
That is a wrap up.
That's a wrap up. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and making sure going to Influex, follow Influex and check out their work. And also come back and we're working on a new site, the Dan Lok Show, the new Dan Lok Show site. And you see all the new websites that we'll be working with Influex to develop. So keep an eye on that. Until then, I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you. If you are an influencer, speaker, expert, or author, and you're stuck at 6 or 7 figure a year, you feel like you're ready to scale big, but you keep running into the same people problems or system problems in your business. Join us at the upcoming SMART Challenge and discover how to lead your team at a higher level from one of the most followed and highest earning influencers in the world. Discover the secrets that 8-figure entrepreneurs know that 6 and 7 figure founders don't. Click the link below to secure your seat today.